Hi, everyone. Welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. 1986, what a year. In Toronto, a TTC ride was 45 cents for kids and $1 for adults. Over at Honest Ed's, you could get a pair of pantyhose for 77 cents. And the population of Ontario was about 9 million people. Now, let's see what the hot topics were for the province at that time.
Oral questions, the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, my question is for the Premier in day 14 of the doctor's strike. He has assured us from day one that his government is monitoring the situation out there and that the situation is not out of control. He has told us of his personal attention being paid to this. I wonder in the circumstances, therefore, if he could give us information which I'm sure his government has with regard to the number of abortions that have now been canceled throughout the system, the number of bypass surgeries that have been canceled, the number of exploratory surgeries for procedures for cancer that have been canceled, the number of Northerners who have prepaid their travel arrangements and have now lost their prepayments because their operations have been canceled, how many children have had their tonsillectomies canceled, and how many beds are now empty, particularly in metropolitan Toronto.
Premier?
If you've monitored the situation, could you give us that information?
Speaker, I don't have that information, but I'll refer to the Minister of Health. He may be able to assist you better.
Order. Order. I understand the Premier has referred that to the Minister of Health, correct? Order. 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 Did the Premier refer to the Minister of Health? Order. Did the Premier refer to the Minister of Health? Yes? Minister?
I would like to know, Mr. Speaker, can you answer the question and then refer? In other words, 2 people can answer or 3 people can answer. We asked a question, we got the answer, now he's referring. Either you refer it or you don't.
I agree, and I understand the Premier referred it to the Minister of Health. Order. Minister?
In the discussion, I don't know what your ruling would be. The Premier said, received a question. He said, I don't know the answer. I refer it to the Minister of Health. Perhaps he does. Surely the question was asked with the thought that perhaps the questioner would like to be provided with the answer. The only person who might possibly know the answer is the Minister of Health.
Order. 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 I listened to the point of order. I listened to the comment. I understood the Premier to refer it to the Minister of Health. Minister of Health. Order. Order. The member was up on a point of order, and order. No, order. Order. The purpose of the time is to ask questions, to get responses. Order. 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 I'll recognize the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this particular time, Mr. Speaker, I think it would be of interest for us to reflect on an answer given by a former Minister of Health in relation to a strike in 1982. The interesting item in that particular situation was that there was a question which required an answer with respect to the number of operations which had been canceled in the KW hospital. And the former Minister of Health stood in his place and said, "It is unrealistic for you to know." I can tell the honourable members that we have taken a considerable amount of time to be in touch with the hospitals where services are being restricted. We have watched as the medical judgments and opinions have been rendered, and I can tell the honourable members, Mr. Speaker, that in fact I do not have any running total of those particular categories that the honourable gentleman has reached or has mentioned to us here. I can tell the honourable member that there is some estimate of elective procedures which have been canceled for the moment, but being that they are only elective in nature, people do not always contact us with respect to procedures which have been canceled. In addition to that, as the honourable member from Cochrane South brought to our attention not long ago, it is more difficult to figure out just how many people have been referred and have not been.
Order. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I asked my original question of the Premier to determine if he knew what was happening in the healthcare system. He said no, he did not, and referred it elsewhere. I want to ask my supplementary to the Premier again to see if he can provide us with the information.
Order.
He wouldn't know anyway.
Order. The supplementary must flow out of the response, and therefore it must go to the Minister of Health.
Speaker, on the point of order, I am raising the point of order. The point is, Mr. Speaker, I believe you made an error. The question went to the Premier, he answered the question, and the supplementary is to the Premier.
Order. Order. If the Leader of the Opposition... Order!
Well, you're making a joke out of question period.
Order! I'll wait. Order.
And that's what the supplementary has to deal with.
Order. Supplementary to the Minister of Health. Order.
Ask you.
Order. Would the honourable member take a seat? Order. Supplementary to the Minister of Health.
The Premier assures everyone there's only inconvenience in the system, and he doesn't have any information upon which to base that assurance. And he won't answer questions in this
Supplementary.
House. My supplementary question, which I am forced to put to the Minister of Health, as opposed to the Premier of Ontario, is this. Can you inform this House whether or not you have informed the Premier of Ontario with regard to all the information I asked about a moment ago, and if you haven't, how can you continue to tell the people of Ontario you have it under control, you're monitoring it, and there's only inconvenience? How can you do that when you don't have the information?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that there is no secret to the fact that I communicate daily, not only with the Premier, but with the people who are involved in administering our hospitals, our public hospitals, which are publicly funded institutions in which the slowdown is occurring. I can tell you that I'm also in daily contact with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, And when there is advice given to me that there is a procedure which has been canceled or which requires an intervention, we do that sort of thing. But as the honourable member from Cochrane South pointed out in his question last week, I do not know about situations where a referral has taken place from Northern Ontario, for instance, until the advice is given to me by the individual patients. We do our best to respond to those questions where there are individual patients who come to us. With respect to our understanding of the work of therapeutic abortion committees, for instance, all of the matters which have come in front of those abortion committees and all of those procedures which are required as a result of their deliberations have in fact been carried out. That, I think, provides you with an answer to that question. I have communicated directly to the Premier every day, and in fact we will keep not only the Premier but the public up to date on the fact that medical decisions are being rendered and that in fact the system here in Ontario is functioning.
Final supplementary.
We are in day 14. We're entering now. Tomorrow we will enter the third week of a strike in this province. How can the minister be telling the people of this province, that there is no danger out there, that their safety is okay, that there's only inconvenience, when the Minister of Health and the Premier in this House have to rise and say they don't know how many heart bypasses have been canceled? Do you not at least have that information at hand? How many heart procedures have been canceled in the past 2 weeks?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think I must remind the honourable gentleman of an article which appeared in the London Free Press wherein a particular medical practitioner was quoted as saying, "Don't inquire into the health of my patients," when asked about a particular procedure that was canceled. He has indicated that particular practitioner indicated that he makes a medically necessary judgment and will make and continue to make those, and our government has indicated that we want to see those physicians free to practice those particular decisions. I can tell the public that is, from what I understand, that there are no medically necessary procedures being canceled without the review of the medical practitioners. I can tell the honourable gentleman here, well, Mr. Speaker, it would seem that the member from Cochrane South would rather intervene between physician and patient. That is not the position of this government. I can tell you that those people are providing medical services to the people of this province. We are performing, we have intervened in the situations to ensure that the administrative capabilities of our public hospitals are contained and in fact will be carried out, and we are, Mr. Speaker, assuring the people here that we do know what in fact is taking place in the province.
New question, the Leader of the Opposition.
I want to invite the Minister of Health to stop reading press clippings, particularly his own, and begin to be Minister of Health.
That's right.
New question.
My question, Mr. Speaker, if he'll agree to accept it, is to the Premier of Ontario. At a press conference held at 2 o'clock this afternoon, the Ontario Medical Association and Dr. Railton reported that you had been calling Dr. Railton several times up to midnight last night, but that your suggestion for a mediation after you have taken away some important elements of healthcare practitioners' protection in this province is too late, and to quote Dr. Railton, it's baloney. Could you tell us now, as we enter the third week of the strike, I'll wait for the Minister of Education to finish his advice.
Question.
Could you tell us what you now intend to do, given the fact that you have been unable to stop the strike? Your relationships with the OMA are so badly severed, you can't do anything about it, and you don't know what's happening in the health system.
Premier.
You're quite right, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member, I did chat with Dr. Railton last night. He phoned me at home, and I was very happy to chat with him. As you know, the Minister put forward a very significant, I believe, suggestion yesterday when he wanted to look at the issues that have always been raised by the medical profession, the so-called questions of professional freedom and liberty. And we have said we're prepared to address those in substantial ways with the assistance of a third party, if that is what they so desire, and they've had a chance to analyze that. Now, I have not seen Dr. Railton's statement from the particular press conference that he had, and I'll just have to take their word for it, of what he said. But I haven't had any official word back. We have had no official response back to the offer that was made by the Minister of Health.
Supplementary.
Well, they got your offer in the
Might I say to the Premier that your suggestions to the OMA are tantamount to Jesse James applying to be a Brinks driver.
Supplementary.
Might I say to the Premier that at the OMA press conference, the OMA indicated that the strike was going to continue unabated. With regard to your attempts to appear to be anxious to mediate and conciliate, Dr. Railton said to the press conference that the letter that you had your minister write indicates that you didn't intend to mediate since you first brought up the question of mediation in the House, and unbelievably, but not surprising to those of us who work in this legislature, you gave the letter addressed to Dr. Railton to the media before you had it delivered to Dr. Railton.
Question.
Given the fact that this is the way you intend to try and stop the strike, what are you now suggesting you're going to do next in this circumstance?
Premier.
I gather the Speaker, it's obvious that the honourable member has a new private investigator writing his lines in the House here, Mr. Speaker. But let me just say, Mr. Speaker, we have that letter offer was made in good faith by the minister. It was conveyed immediately to Dr. Railton. As you know, I've had the opportunity to speak to a large number of doctors in the last few weeks. Now, almost everywhere I go, I have an opportunity to chat with doctors, and I'm always delighted to see them and share my views with them, and as well get their insights into the question. And some of the doctors, indeed a lot of the doctors that I've talked to, weren't always aware of the kinds of things that have been going on in the discussions that the minister has been having on an ongoing basis for the last year with the medical profession. You know, and even though we live in this great information age, sometimes all the details aren't translated down. And I think it's important that all the medical community understands the view of the government in this matter, and that's why we have put forward specific suggestions that would address the specific concerns that they have raised. They believe it's a matter of professional freedom, I gather, and I accept that at face value, and we've said we're prepared to address those concerns in a real way. And that's what we have offered, and I would hope that the OMA would look at that situation, and perhaps if you tell me they've rejected that today, I hope they would reconsider.
Final supplementary.
Well, may I only say that the people you have to try and accommodate, having called them overrated, overpaid gougers, are saying with regard now to your deathbed repentance that it's baloney. That's the circumstance you face. Given that, I have a proposition to put to the Premier.
By way of question.
I propose this afternoon to call Dr. Railton and see if he and invite him and his people
question.
to meet with me in my office over the next couple of days and see if we might be able together to develop the kind of package that obviously the Premier of Ontario is unable to develop because of the way he's handled this. My question to the Premier is this. My question to the Premier is this. If we are able to come to some sort of proposal, I'll wait till your advisors are finished.
Question.
If we are able to come to some sort of proposal, will you be willing, Mr. Speaker, I'll wait till you get order from the New Democratic.
Order. Do you have a question or not? Order. Do you have a question?
You can get order in the House to ask the question. Everybody else gets order. Sit down.
Order. Please put your final supplementary question.
Mr. Speaker, we are entitled to the same kind of peace that you demand in this House when the ministers are giving answers when we put questions.
Do I understand you have no further supplementary?
No, you do not, Mr.
Well,
Speaker.
place your supplementary.
There's order.
My question to the Premier is this. Since we are going to invite the OMA to meet with us to see if they can accomplish a package which obviously you are unable to put together with them, will you agree to join that meeting? Will you agree to join that meeting if, as, and when it becomes appropriate to put that proposal to you?
Premier?
Speaker, my impression was that you were in constant touch with the OMA, and as a matter of fact, that's what you used your telephone for, and you wanted it back. So if this is a new call, I'm interested, and I think you can probably excuse your colleagues in this House who've known you for now almost a decade for snickering when you made the suggestion that you have. The Treasury is still reverberating from the last meeting you had with the doctors a little while ago. Mr. Speaker, we're obviously searching for constructive suggestions. I must say, in fairness, I have never seen I never would have, and others may have, and I may have misjudged some of your characteristics, but I'd never have seen you in the role of a conciliator in a situation or a mediator, although, however, there's always hidden sides to everyone's character, and you may have some talents that I haven't seen. But let me tell you, if your honorable friend has any good ideas, we're always interested. So far, I haven't heard any. But if you're asking me to back off the bill, the question to you now is the same as the same. And I don't think most people observing this think your suggestion, frankly, is very credible.
New question. The member for Algoma.
Thank you, Mr.
Order. The member for Algoma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question arising out of the Premier's statement related to the allegations regarding the member for Cochrane North. Can the Minister confirm that this is a quote from the report that the Minister filed, quote, "no share interest in public corporations," unquote? And if so, doesn't his own statement today indicate that that was an inaccurate statement? Does he believe that such a statement is acceptable from a Minister of the Crown? And can he explain why, when rumors of this matter have been rampant for some weeks, he has apparently taken no action up until the matter was raised in the legislature?
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, to the honourable member, you say rumors have been rampant for several weeks. I can tell you that I have never heard the rumor. I'd never heard of Giant Tiger until yesterday in this House. Golden Tiger. I'd never heard of the situation, Mr. Speaker, and so you say that the rumors were abounding for some wide period. I'd heard rumors that the Conservatives were trying to get the honourable member and having detectives on him. I'd heard those, but I hadn't heard this situation in the past. Now, let me just say, serious allegations, very serious allegations have been made in this House. And I say to the honourable member, I take them very, very seriously. All I know as of yesterday, the charges that were leveled in this House. I immediately undertook to try to ascertain the facts. As I said to you today, the Minister has told me that as of the filing on, I believe, January something or other, 31st or so, he owned no shares in public corporations. And so there is a serious difference, obviously, in the facts as put forward in this House and between the things that the Minister has told me today. He is in the process now of gathering up all of those facts and substantiating the facts with documentation. He will be in the House tomorrow to share that information with you. And I am sure my honourable friend, being a fair-minded member of this House, would like to hear the facts, according to the Minister, with supporting documentation. It appears at the moment that the honourable member from Sarnia has one understanding of the facts, which presumably he believes in, and the Minister has told me other things. You will want to hear those facts laid out in the House tomorrow, I am very sure.
Supplementary. Mr. Speaker, the Premier's own statement indicated that there was one block of shares, about 17,000, that were still held by the Minister but in escrow, as I understand it. If that is the case, is it a tolerable situation for a Minister of mines in this province, who is responsible for administering the Mining Tax Act, the Ontario Mineral Exploration Program Act, and the Mining Act, to hold shares, even if they're in a blind trust or in escrow, to own shares in a company that is apparently doing business in mining in this province?
Premier?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I told you, that the minister is going to have a very clear statement tomorrow, and I know my honourable friend, being fair-minded, would want not to prejudge these things, and these questions can be put in a very specific way. Now, my understanding is, and without knowing all of facts, just on the basis of what I've been told so far, is that some of those shares were in escrow because of some other financial arrangement, and the minister had no control over that particular situation. Well, and he will, I think, share with this House the view that he had legal advice that this conformed with the conflict of interest guidelines. Now, you may have the view, you may well have the view, and frankly, it may be shared by many members of this House, that the conflict of interest guidelines are inadequate. I can tell you that's a constant source of worry to me. But I think as fair-minded members, you'd want to hear the facts laid out tomorrow. Certainly, I'm looking forward to that.
Final supplementary, the member for Etobicoke.
Supplementary to the Premier. Would the Minister not agree that under his guidelines, there is a requirement, one, that there be a disclosure, even if the shares are held in escrow; two, that if there are any changes in the composition or ownership, that there is a requirement on page 2 for a disclosure; and three, that it now appears from the Premier's statement that at least some of the shares are not in the hands of a trustee who is licensed under the Loan and Trust Act of the Province of Ontario. Would the Minister not admit that even from his statement there are 3 obvious violations of his own guidelines? And if there are 3 violations, why would he not ask the Minister to step down in the same way that the Chairman of Management Board stepped down until there can be a free, independent inquiry into this matter? Or do you have a double standard, one for the Chairman of Management Board and one for this Minister?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I say to you very frankly, I say to my honourable friend that I don't think that the situations are quite parallel from this point of view. The former minister of the Management Board laid the facts before this House, and I think there's some difference with respect to the interpretation of the conflict of interest guidelines as they pertain to those. And there's an ongoing discussion that started in that regard. In this case, the honourable member from Sarnia has made very serious allegations of facts. On the basis of what I know today, the facts, as he put them in this House, are not correct. And in fact, that the facts that the minister will bring tomorrow, and this is on the basis of what I'm told, differ substantially with that. So it's not a question of the interpretation of the conflict of interest guidelines, it's different facts. Now, we go on to your third point. You would say that anyone who's against whom a charge is leveled in this House should resign, or at least a minister of the Crown, presumably. You will be aware, you've been around here a long time, that ministers are charged regularly with a great number of things. And I remember many of them in the past, let me tell you, Mr. Speaker. And are you saying that a minister should not have the opportunity to put those facts clearly before the House, that any time there's some sort of an allegation that immediately there should be a withdrawal and a presumption of guilt? I don't think we want to put ourselves, any of us, in that particular position. If you're asking me or suggesting that we need a thorough review of the conflict of interest guidelines, other ways to handle these difficult situations, then I am completely with you in that regard. There is no more troublesome issue to a First Minister than this issue that's been raised here and has been raised before in the House and many times others. And we search for advice on how to handle that because we recognize our responsibilities to the public.
New question. The member for Windsor Riverside.
Minister of Health. As the Minister had an opportunity to look at the case that was outlined in the Toronto Star yesterday involving Tiffany Rutherford, age 2, who went 4 days without treatment from the medical care system because of the doctor's strike, and is the Minister satisfied that the letter that was sent out by the college on June 19th signed by Dr. Catton, which states, and I quote, "The issue before you and before the Council is to ensure that such protests are made without endangering patient life or health." Is the Minister satisfied that this individual's health was not endangered by this strike?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I had reviewed the particular report which was in the press, and I had not had a chance to review it fully with the college. That's certainly the situation as it is right now. I'm concerned that the report in the papers was that there could have been, had there been any further delay, more permanent problems for that individual patient. I can tell you that I take the situation which was reported to be one of very serious nature, and will be following more specifically this matter up with the college.
Supplementary?
Perhaps the Minister could indicate to us that since the doctors of this province had decided that public hospital emergency wards will be closed, since the doctors of this province have decided how many doctors will staff public hospital emergency wards, who owns the hospitals of this province? Who controls the hospitals of this province? The doctors or the people of this province?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think that the member knows from his role as health critic that in fact the independent boards of trustees are actually the people who in fact make the decisions about what happens in their hospitals. They in fact pass the bylaws. They in fact make decisions of a business nature with respect to what happens in those facilities. They have in place as well certain mechanisms in which people make determinations of a medical nature, and so I can tell the honourable gentleman that in fact the public of this province is responsible for those public hospitals.
Final supplementary?
If the public actually owns the hospitals of this province, I don't know why the Minister of Health and this government are allowing the doctors to do what they're doing to the healthcare system in this province. I'd like to ask the Minister specifically, in my home community, I was in Windsor last night and I read in the paper where Dr. Donald Nasser, the chief of psychiatry at Metropolitan Hospital, has decided to carry out a one-man strike, and he controls 9 beds in the psychiatry ward at Metropolitan Hospital, and all 9 beds are empty because he refuses to admit anyone into those beds which he controls. I'd like to ask the Minister, number one, does that not violate the letter that the college sent out? And number 2, does this not demonstrate that a profession is trying to take away the healthcare system which we own, and when is your government going to have the guts to take that system back to the people of this province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman may be suggesting that the particular physician is putting his patients at risk. If that in fact is what he is indicating, then there will be a particular following up on that matter. I can tell the honourable gentleman that when people make decisions, and there are decisions made every day about whether or not treatment is required in an institution or whether that treatment can be delivered in another area, that in fact those decisions are made from a medical standpoint. I can tell the honourable gentleman that in fact when it comes to decisions about who has admitting privileges and who does not have admitting privileges, or who is able to make use of the facilities, that is determined under the bylaws and under the discretion of the people who are on the board of directors of those independent institutions.
New question. The member for Sarnia.
Question to the Premier. The Premier has indicated in a number of statements that he's made with respect to the member for Cochrane North that this is a very complex issue. I'd like to share with the Premier a document which I will pass over to him, which is a disclosure of public holdings that was filed, over to the Premier please, was filed with the clerk on January the 31st, 1986. Now, Premier, I'd like you to state in a very clear and concise way to this House whether that document is in fact accurate, whether in fact the Minister of Northern Development and Mines owned shares in Golden Tiger as of that date, or did he not?
Premier?
Very simply, the answer he tells me is he did not. That's what he tells me.
It doesn't say that.
Supplementary?
Not only, I have to say, Mr. Premier, does your own statement not indicate that, but it's very strange indeed that the minister himself would find it necessary to dispose of shares on March the 3rd, but not to disclose the ownership of those shares at a prior period of time where it very clearly the evidence would indicate, that he did have ownership of those shares at that point. On March the 3rd, yes.
Today.
And today he still owns those shares.
Order. Supplementary.
I'd like to attempt to simplify what has apparently become a rather complex issue. Surely, Mr. Premier, within 24 hours you would know why your minister had to make certain transactions in March with respect to those shares, whether he owned those shares in January the 31st when he made disclosure, and if in fact he didn't make disclosure because, as you are now putting before the House, he didn't own them, how come he did not make a supplemental affirmation of his ownership of those at some later date, or bring to the attention of the public the fact that he owned those shares, recognizing, as my friends in the third party have said,
Premier.
that here is a minister who's involved in lumbering, involved in mining, and yet the public doesn't know about his ownership in this particular company.
I'm not sure I can satisfy my honorable friend opposite, and I think as a fair-minded member you would want to be careful and not want to make allegations in the absence of all of the facts, and I told you there'll be a statement here tomorrow. But my understanding is, and I hope I'm not wrong, is that the sale was registered on March 3rd, but took, as frequently happens in share transfer registers, that's obviously the document that your detective checked, but in fact the sale took place prior to that, prior to the filing on January 3rd. Now that's my understanding of what went on and the answer specifically to your question.
New question, the member for Bellwoods.
Well, I have to ask virtually the same question again of the Premier, because in his statement today he said that the minister owned two lots of shares. The first one was sold. The second lot comprises 17,172 shares which are held in escrow. The question is a very simple one. Does the minister own those shares? And did he own them on January 31st?
Premier? Well, Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that they were in escrow. That's my understanding, and that's my understanding, with no control over those particular shares. Now, that may not satisfy you. Frankly, I'm not in a position to answer legally all of these questions at the present time, and I'm sure my honourable member would want a full explanation of that, which will presumably be coming forward tomorrow.
Supplementary.
The fact appears to be that he owned the shares, and he submitted a form in which he said he did not own the shares. But my supplementary question is this: is the trustee of the second lot of 17,172 shares registered under the Ontario Loan and Trust Corporations Act?
Mr. Speaker, I don't pretend to be an authority. My understanding it's a guarantee trust. It's registered in Quebec and Ontario. Now, that's my understanding.
New question. The member for Cochrane South.
Mr. Speaker, I know the Attorney General thinks this line of question is contemptuous, but let me deal with the Premier's knowledge contemptible. I'm not talking about the honourable member from Cochrane North. I want to ask the Premier a question about his knowledge. On September the 3rd of 1985, the Kingston Whig Standard, after interviewing your colleagues in your caucus from Eastern Ontario, reported that your office and you personally had examined every facet of the MPP's personal and financial life. No detail was left unturned. Every member of the Liberal caucus was grilled for hours. A detailed questionnaire had to be filled out and sent to the Premier's office. When two of the Eastern Ontario MPPs were elevated to cabinet posts, the screws tightened another notch. The Liberal leader was determined to make sure that his fragile government would be free of even a hint of scandal. My question to the Premier is, did you know during the course of your early interviews by yourself and your office staff about the holdings of the member from Cochrane North?
Premier?
Speaker, I personally did not know.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker,
Order. Supplementary?
is this article accurate? Did you and your office examine in detail every financial aspect of every member of your caucus in August of 1985?
Premier?
At the transition time, an independent lawyer was brought in to survey all these matters. A member of the firm of Torrey, Delorier, and Binnington was brought in to analyze these situations in conjunction with Glennis Wright. If you're asking me if I'm answering your question. And I can say I didn't personally survey all these matters. I asked for advice if everything was fine, and I was told that.
New question. The member for Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of the Environment about one aspect of his white paper about which is distinctly vague. The Minister has told us he's going to control the 200 industries that discharge directly into Ontario's waterways. He is not going to impose controls on the 12,000 industries that discharge into sewage treatment plants. It appears, in fact, in the white paper that a large producer of organic chemicals will be controlled. A small one can continue to use dilution as his solution to pollution. Can the Minister tell the House why he has not imposed stringent limits immediately on these 12,000 industries, or at the very least by mid-1987 when the 200 will be controlled?
Minister?
Now, don't water down your answer.
Pardon?
Minister?
Don't dilute the answer.
On the original question?
I'll try not to dilute the answer for the member for Lake.
Minister?
More interruptions coming from the member for Cornwall, but I'll ignore them, Mr. Speaker, because you always instruct that I do so. The member, of course, identifies that there are two different ways in which effluent can be produced for going into a waterway. One is the direct way, which goes directly into, for instance, the waterway. Now, that particular, the member for Sudbury East is interested, and he should listen. That, of course, is where you catch your major polluters, as I've indicated, the direct effluent going into the waterways, which is the responsibility of the Ministry of the Environment. In addition to that, the Ministry of the Environment has legislative responsibility for that effluent which is produced by sewage treatment plants across the province. We have given instruction through the white paper and the suggestions for which we're looking for reaction within the next 60 days, that sewage treatment plants will be evaluated, that they will be monitored, and that they will have abatement procedures applied to them. So there are two ways in which municipalities can deal with this matter. It is very likely that the way in which they will deal with it is through the bylaws that they have for the discharge of sewage going from any one of the sources within a municipality into the sewage treatment plant. That is what they have responsibility for. We in the ministry are pleased to assist in any way we can the municipalities to deal with that matter.
Mr. Speaker, it sounds as though the Minister is putting the responsibility on municipalities who are inadequately equipped to control responsibility for a job that I think the Ministry ought to be undertaking itself. And I'd like to ask the Minister, it's now a year since he took office and there has been no diminution in the amount of discharges to waterways. It appears from this white paper that it's going to be another 3 or 4 years before there's any diminution of the amount that's being discharged. Can the Minister tell us what he's going to do in the interim?
Well, the member forgets, and I'm sure that she might, if she thought about it for some period of time, be able to recall that there are many ways in which effluents going into the waterways are controlled at the present time. Some of them are by certificates of approval. Some of them are by control orders. On an ongoing basis, certificates of approval are evaluated, particularly when a problem is identified. Control orders are a dynamic process at this time. She would know, I think of the Chipman incident, for instance, I think of Ontario Paper, for instance, where there is a process, a public process for evaluating a previous control order and upgrading or updating that control order. And all around the province we are going through this procedure on an almost daily basis of evaluating and upgrading those control orders. So we see a diminishing of those products going into the environment. That is, of course, in addition to the program which we have outlined. I know the member would want to have sufficient opportunity for environmental groups and others who are going to be directly affected by this to have the input that the white paper provides for.
New question, the member for Sarnia.
Question to the Premier. There are 17,172 shares, according to the statement which you delivered to the House earlier today, which are presently in escrow on the part of the member for Cochrane North. Would the Premier indicate to this House whether or not, in his opinion, the member for Cochrane North owns the shares which he has in escrow?
Premier?
Speaker, I'm not in a position to give you a legal opinion on that particular matter, and you want to try to force this out of me at the present time. Well, I tell you, I was trying to share what I know, what I was told at the present time, and I told you the minister's coming back. Would you prefer I said nothing today? Well, I think you want to be somewhat fair-minded about this situation and attend the full facts, and then you can ask any questions you'd like to on the situation. I don't pretend to be an expert on this. As you know, when you escrow your shares, you have absolutely no control on them, as I understand it. Well, why don't you answer the question, then you can help your friend out, because you know everything.
Order. Order.
Don't be petulant. Don't be petulant.
Order. 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 Supplementary, the member for Sarnia.
I think the Premier will find, in his review of the Conflict of Interest Guidelines, sir, that the fact that the 17,172 shares are in escrow implies ownership, not necessarily control, but ownership of those shares. I'd like the Premier to indicate to this House when, in fact, the Minister for Northern Affairs and Mines, Northern Development and Mines, when he disclosed publicly the ownership of those shares which he ostensibly has in escrow.
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, as I understand, escrow means by definition you don't have control. You put them they're in escrow under the control of some other, pending certain other resolutions. And that's the situation. Now, you're trying to say that he was hiding something. I guess that's what you're saying? Well, sure you are. You're trying to suggest that he's saying something that he should, and I'm entitled to make your judgments on these matters, but I can tell you all these facts will be made public tomorrow. I'm not a lawyer. I mean, I was, but I've lost my QC. Well, I tell you, I've given up my QC, and I never was a very good lawyer. As you know, I'm living proof of why QC should not exist, Mr. Speaker. I've never practiced. And you can ask all these legal questions in your pursuit of my honorable friend, and you can make your points in that particular regard. You're suggesting he was trying to hide something, that he was manipulating them, and that kind of thing. Let me tell you, I've told you what I know today, and you'll hopefully hear the minister out tomorrow.
New question, the member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Premier regarding the report of the Resources Development Committee, which was tabled in the legislature earlier this week. This is the report on the impact of the announced layoffs at Algoma Steel Corporation on Sault Ste. Marie and Wawa, a report which contains a number of very good recommendations for the government for action to improve the economic situation in that area. Has the Premier reviewed this report? Does the Premier agree with the recommendations of this report that have been supported by the members of all three parties on that committee? And when the Premier comes to Sault Ste. Marie in July, as is well known in Sault Ste. Marie that he does have a visit scheduled for that time, will the Premier be making announcements on the specific recommendations of this report for Sioux area?
Premier?
We have been gathering a great deal of advice, as you know, with respect to the problems in Northern Ontario, including the members of this House, and I must say it's been, in my opinion, a remarkable cooperative effort, and some very constructive ideas have been put forward by the members of the opposition. As I understand it, that report has not been debated in the House, but it is one of the sources of information we will be using. As I've told my honourable friend, we have been working very, very hard on a number of initiatives, long-term and short-term, for Northern Ontario, and hope, as you know, that to have an announcement fairly soon. I've heard some of your colleagues have already made some of the announcements on our behalf, so I want to thank you for anything you can do to spread the information.
Supplementary?
Ramsey?
Supplementary?
Surely I hope the Premier realizes that we've got two economies going on in this province, and I'm sure he is aware from the Treasurer that, in fact, the revenues from the growing economy in the South are expanding and are surpassing the expectations that we'd had last fall. Is the Premier and his government going to take action to see that those revenues from the growing economy in the South are diverted to those areas of the province, such as particularly Sault Ste. Marie, but other areas as well, to ensure that we have a more balanced economy in this province, and that those areas which are not growing, in fact, are given the economic and the public resources to turn around their areas so that we have more jobs available for those that really need them.
Premier?
I do take the matter extremely seriously. It's a very high priority for this government, and as I said, a lot of thought has been put into it. You lay out the problems very well. As you know, the Honourable Treasurer has substantially increased the allocation for the Northern Development Fund, but there are other initiatives required as well. There's no one solution. I'm sure my honourable friend would agree with me. There's no one solution to the problems of the North. There's a myriad of small things as well as some long-term approaches to the problem. And I just hope that when we make the announcement in the not-too-distant future of what we have in mind, and believe me, we've been canvassing every option, that we will have your assistance and the assistance of your colleagues in making them work, not just in the short term, but over the long term as well.
New question. The member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Premier about computer contracts. The Premier will know that on June the 10th, we put a question on the order paper asking if you would provide us with the names of all companies in the past year who have received contracts to provide computers, software, or hardware to your government, and whether or not these contracts were tendered. In reply to the order paper question, the acting chairman of Management Board tells the opposition that this information will not be available until approximately the 10th of October. My question to the Premier is your government so disorganized that it can't get this information together for 4 months, or do you have it and you just don't want to tell us?
That's unbelievable. Speaker, there are literally scores and scores and scores of contracts with respect to computer services to the various ministries. Very happy to share the information. We're gathering it up. As you know, I'm not the one that does it personally, but you constantly try to create the impression we have something to hide. We have nothing to hide.
Thank you,
Order.
Mr. Premier. I hope when you get around to freedom of information legislation that we won't be required constantly to wait 4 months for information. But by way of supplementary,
well, why don't you give the information?
By way of supplementary,
give the information, attorney. Be in, give them the information.
Supplementary.
Give them the information. Bring in your bill.
Order. 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 Supplementary, the member for Brantford.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General is clearly uncomfortable about the closed nature of this government, but I'd like to ask by way of supplementary. When we asked in order paper questions also about the Exploracom project, we asked you for some very specific information which was not provided. I asked the Premier again, will you table with this House the current proposal in writing put before the government by Exploracom? Will you table the minutes of any meetings that were held between Exploracom and your government? Will you table correspondence between Mr. Schwartz and the ministry? And will you, in fact, table the financial arrangements that are being entered into between your government and Exploracom? Because those things were not contained in the information you brought forward yesterday.
Premier.
Speaker, if my honourable friend is frustrated in his search for something, then just put the question on the order paper, and we're happy to do it. Well, I can tell you the relevant information was tabled, to the best of my knowledge, plus comparisons. You know, we thought it was important to compare the way that your former government used to make grants compared to ours, and you should want to look into those matters. Some of your own announcements for the International Communications Center in Brantford that had absolutely no scrutiny at all until you announced it with a friend of your, with the help of your friend. You see, we're happy to share all of that. Now, we don't, as you know, report. One thing we cannot make public is cabinet minutes. But as I understand it, all the information was made public. I haven't read all the information. I don't check it, obviously. But what was available was provided to you. And if there's specific questions you have, if you think there's some collusion, then stand up and say so.
New questions? New order.
What we're looking for doesn't mean it's there. You see, that's my friend.
Order. Order.
Okay, Mel, you're on.
Order. New question. Order. There are other members who want to ask questions. The member for the member for Windsor Riverside.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Minister of Health. I'd like to ask the Minister of Health. He will understand that the AIDS Committee of Toronto has asked for additional funding to deal with the support services and the health education that they now provide. I'd like to ask the Minister, why has there not been approval for this extended funding, since this organization provides health education, prevention, as well as support services to the victims of AIDS in the City of Toronto and throughout the province?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, with respect to that committee, we have provided them with funding in the past. In fact, it was the subject of a considerable portion of the Queen's Park report of the Honourable Member from St. George, and she announced that last year. It was a decision that we made to fund them. We have funded them again this year. In fact, we made some arrangements to provide some cash flowing, but I can tell the Honourable gentleman that one of the biggest problems has been the fact that the federal authorities have not come through with funding to the extent which the committee had hoped. I can tell you that also there is considerable effort going into health education with respect to the AIDS item through the panel, the education panel on AIDS, and we're very interested in not getting into a situation where we have duplication.
Supplementary.
I know that the Ministry of Health provides $100,000 of money per year, but the Minister will also understand that $100,000 a year works out to the cost of 2 cases if an individual comes down with the disease. Does the Minister not understand that it would be a much better investment to put money into counseling and to health education? And while the federal government won't live up to their obligations, you are the Minister of Health, and health, the last time I saw, was a provincial responsibility. Will the Minister not reconsider further funding for the AIDS Committee of Toronto?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think with respect to the matter, I'm not sure that a formal request has been made, although I have heard that they are interested in receiving extended funding. I have to indicate to the Honourable Member and to the people of the province that we are concerned about the question of educating people with respect to the nature of the AIDS disease. We have continued to do that through developing a consistent approach to developing materials which can be distributed not only in Ontario, but which has been made available to the federal authorities and has been made available to each of the health ministers of the other provinces. And we have done a considerable amount of work under the auspices of Dr. J. Brown and others on OPEPA. And I can tell the Honourable Member that we are, in fact, I think, making great strides in providing that education material available throughout the province and, in fact, in Toronto as well. But I can tell the Honourable gentleman that we have provided funding for them, and we, in fact, are interested in what they are doing and performing for the public. I've indicated that on many occasions very publicly. I also have to tell the Honourable gentleman that the people from the AIDS Committee of Toronto also help serve on the OPEPA group, and I think that we're doing a very good job with respect to providing education material.
New question, the member for order. The member for Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Treasurer, and it's essentially a 2-part question. Many of the small business people and business people that I've spoken to and my committee have spoken to throughout this province, while by and large they have many positive things to say about the budget recently announced, and indeed they should, they've also put questions to me, and I assured them that I would ask the Treasurer in the House. 2 questions specifically. The first question is...
I don't want to hear you now.
The first question is...
so why don't you just let him ask
Is there
the
a consideration in his ministry by the Treasurer to extend the employee share plan to larger corporations? The second question, hopefully the Treasurer can answer, is in regards to a further extension of the SBDC program, particularly to the service sector.
Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, the employee share program is in the process of formation. I hope to have a bill before the House in the fall. I have had an announcement already in the House asking for the views of the members and the financial and organized labor and working community in general. The idea is that it not be used as a reward for senior executives, but that it be used to allow working people in a corporation to participate. As far as extending SBDCs into the service sector, there was an extension in the budget this time into software and certain other aspects. My concern at the moment is that the money available through SBDCs be taken up more enthusiastically. We think it's a good program, and it's my job to see that the business community is aware of it and knows of its availability to finance the entrepreneurial expansion that is so important to make jobs and economic progress in Ontario.
Member for York Centre.
Question, Speaker, for the Minister of Community and Social Services. The Minister's assistant has made a completely irresponsible statement to the press that not one single child has been harmed by the strike of the Children's Aid Society in Metro Toronto. There is a 6-year-old boy featured on the CBC News last week who has regressed to violent behavior after being sent home 3 weeks early from a treatment center. There are children who were moved out of the LSR group home and are so uncontrollable that one was just in the hospital for stitches.
Question.
There are children in abusive environments cut off from their social workers. The Minister has final responsibility to ensure these children are protected. When is he going to get involved in this strike now existing in Metro Toronto with the Children's Aid Society?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have been advised that the staff of the Society and the Board are meeting again this afternoon to renew their negotiations. I understand that the Board is prepared to make a new offer, and I have very high hopes that the staff will accept that offer.
Time for oral questions has expired.